Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. This week's airport disruptions in Denmark have now been deemed as hybrid attacks, according to the country's Prime Minister. Multiple NATO countries this week have experienced suspicious drone activity near their critical infrastructure.
Denmark saw drone activity near multiple airports.
Denmark has, in recent days, been subjected to hybrid attacks. Drones have been spotted in several places at critical infrastructure, military and civilian.
In Sweden, 2 drones were spotted overnight near Karlskrona, where the main Swedish Navy base is located. In Norway, the Oslo airport had to halt operations earlier this week due to unidentified drones showing up in the area. Denmark has raised alert levels, and Copenhagen is preparing for similar occurrences.
The authorities are in close contact with our allies with a view to quickly strengthening our own Danish capabilities to detect and combat drones.
NATO is working on a drone wall project that would cover the alliance's eastern flank, from Norway to Poland.
Wall of drones actually is like a swarm of drones that are used against drones. The idea is to have them close to the border, or just near the border, or on the border, and to actually use them against the potential air threats.
Poland is ready to act even before such a wall would be implemented.
When the military decides that there is a real threat to the lives and property of Poles, it has a constitutional obligation to protect the inviolability of Polish borders.
The investigations regarding the recent drone incidents on NATO territory are still ongoing, but some experts did not hesitate to put the blame on the Kremlin.
I think one thing is clear: these are not isolated incidents, and these are deliberate provocations on Russia's part.
On Monday, during the emergency UN Security Council meeting, Polish Foreign Minister sent a message to Moscow.
If another missile or aircraft enters our space without permission, deliberately or by mistake, and gets shot down and the wreckage falls on NATO territory, please don't come here to whine about it. You have been warned.
On Friday and Saturday, Latvia will host a NATO military committee conference, with the drone wall likely to top the agenda.
Tensions around Moldova are rising ahead of the upcoming parliamentary elections. The Kremlin is reportedly laying the groundwork for protests against Moldova's pro-European president, Maia Sandu. Meanwhile, the president revealed there had been attempts to transport drone components to Transnistria, a pro-Russian breakaway region of the country.
President Maia Sandu said that Moldova faced attempts to smuggle drone manufacturing components into Transnistria. According to Sandu, they've been hampered, but the revelation leaves many unanswered questions.
The question is, would a government controlled by Moscow stop these actions? Who could guarantee that they would have the courage to tell Moscow, no, we will not allow these drones to be built in Transnistria? And if drones are manufactured there, what happens to them? Recently, drones launched from Belarusian territory reached Poland. Why wouldn't Russia use Moldova for the same purpose?
The news comes ahead of the parliamentary vote which could determine Moldova's bid to join the European Union, amid what officials describe as a Russian effort to influence voters and undermine the country's EU accession plan.
It's not the first time that Russia is employing textbook manipulation and disinformation tactics, but they're resorting to much more.
Authorities have arrested dozens of suspected pro-Kremlin operatives accused of plotting unrest and spreading disinformation ahead of the election. Institute for the Study of War reports the country could be facing Euromaidan-style turmoil following the elections. Wedged between Ukraine, currently fighting off a Russian invasion, and EU member Romania, Moldova has long been torn over the choice between forging closer ties with Brussels or maintaining Soviet-era relations with Moscow. Polling data suggests that Sandu's Party of Action and Solidarity, currently holding a majority in parliament, may lose its dominant position. No other party is expected to secure a clear majority, leaving the outcome of the elections uncertain.
Major European car manufacturers, including Volkswagen and Stellantis, are halting production in numerous factories, including those in Central Europe. Both companies have cited worse than expected market conditions as the reason behind the pauses.
This is VW's production site in Zwickau in the southeastern German state of Saxony, near the border with the Czech Republic. Starting October 6th, these machines will stop assembling the company's electric cars for a week. And Zwickau will not be the only affected site. Volkswagen's plant in Emden, near the border with the Netherlands, will also pause production for a couple of days in October.
Seeing that the revenues for the second quarter in 2025 went down by 10-15%. One of the reasons was extra taxes which went from United States. On the other side, there was also a problem with selling EVs.
VW is not alone in the halt game. Stellantis has decided to pause production across 6 of its sites in Europe, including at the Polish factory in Tychy. In Poissy, the halts will last an unprecedented 3 weeks, starting in October.
Apart from COVID, for internal reasons, no, it had never happened before. In the memory of older workers, a pause for 3 consecutive weeks here at this factory had never been seen. No, this is clearly the management rolling out its closure plan.
Stellantis has had a rough year, with the company's car registrations in Europe going down by 8% between January and July this year.
For them, it's super important to show at the end of the year that the revenue is not going lower than everyone were expecting, but to show better results in Q3 and Q4.
Both companies are amidst efforts to improve profitability, with Volkswagen letting go 35,000 people before the end of the decade, and Stellantis promising a return to positive cash flow this year.
The iconic Versailles Palace was the site of a farmers' protest on Friday. The protesters called for the removal of regulations of agricultural practices they say are threatening their livelihood. French farming unions joined forces to protest against the planned EU-Mercosur trade deal and the US imposed tariffs. The demonstrators are planning to further ramp up the pressure on the French government to address their problems. The farmers fear that opening the EU market to goods from South America will have a detrimental effect on their job security and their independence as food producers. The European Commission put up the Mercosur deal for approval this month, promising to cushion the transition with limits on farm product imports. Following the drone attack on the global Sumud Flotilla, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has sent a Navy ship to assist the vessels. The convoy, that includes many pro-Palestinian activists on board, including the Swedish campaigner Greta Thunberg, hopes to deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni sent a Navy ship to assist the global Sumud Flotilla. The convoy of about 50 vessels with many pro-Palestinian activists on board, including the Swedish campaigner Greta Thunberg, was attacked by drones in international waters off Greece.
Although I condemn what happened last night completely, and we are conducting our investigations to determine who is responsible,
she also took this moment to criticize the flotilla, calling its actions dangerous and irresponsible.
We can't risk people's safety to carry out initiatives that, let's face it, seem primarily designed not to deliver aid but to create problems for the government.
In the early hours of Friday, Spanish Navy vessel Furor also departed from the Cartagena harbor to join Italy in assisting the convoy. The global Sumud Flotilla, composed of 50 ships with activists from at least 44 countries, departed from Barcelona in late August with the aim of breaking the Israeli blockade of Gaza and delivering humanitarian aid. Tuesday's attack marked the 3rd time this month the flotilla had been targeted by drones.
The closer we get to Gaza, the higher is the risk of escalation and more attacks.
The convoy takes its name from the Arabic word sumud, meaning resilience. Israel said on Monday it would not allow the flotilla to reach Gaza.
Hungary is facing a major political crisis following revelations of a child sex abuse scandal allegedly covered up for years by Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's government. The scandal has shaken public opinion, damaging the ruling Fidesz party's approval ratings and raising serious questions about the future of Orbán's administration. The Prime Minister himself said no member of the government was involved in the scandal.
Every member of the government is innocent. Not a single minister's honor is in question. They can't be linked to such crimes. If someone still makes those accusations, they have to face the consequences. Several government politicians said this week that they will take serious legal action, and a lot of people said that sounds like a threat. But legal consequences are an old concept derived from Roman law. Everyone knows there is a legal system and how it works. In this case, the offenders, who actually include some opposition politicians, knew exactly what they were doing, meaning if you accuse someone of being a pedophile without evidence, you can expect punishment.
Polish ski mountaineer Andrzej Bargiel has made history by becoming the first person in the world to descend from Mount Everest on skis without supplemental oxygen. The athlete only spent a few minutes on the summit of the world's highest peak before skiing down for 2 days all the way to base camp.
Skiing from the top of the world is something very few have ever dared to undertake. And until now, no one had skied down Mount Everest without bottled oxygen. Pole Andrzej Bargiel is the first person ever to complete this extraordinary feat.
I wanted to do this for years. I spent 3 months in a tent at the foot of Mount Everest. You need determination to achieve feats like these. Skiing down that peak was a great adventure. It really is a massive mountain, and you become even more aware of its size at this time of year because there's no one else there.
But skiing down was not the only challenge. Getting to the summit in these conditions and without supplementary oxygen required extreme athletic stamina and mental strength. Bargiel spent 16 hours climbing up the so-called death zone, located at over 8,000 meters above sea level, where breathing is nearly impossible.
Only 1.8% of summits were ever achieved without the use of supplemental oxygen. To be able to do this in the autumn climbing season, when we're the only expedition here and you have to set the route, you have to fix the route with the Sherpas and actually find the route to the summit in deep snow without any oxygen, I think it's completely remarkable.
Preparations for the historic descent took weeks, and for Andrzej Bargiel it took an entire lifetime to gear up for the challenge. That's why after the success, Bargiel's team was bursting with pride and elation. After all, the momentous achievement was not a piece of cake.
You need a lot of experience. I'm 37, and it would have been a difficult thing for me to do earlier in life. You need to be completely independent in the mountains, understand the risks, but also take care of your own safety and surround yourself with the right people.
Andrzej Bargiel's story is one of perseverance. His previous Everest expeditions in 2019 and 2022 were cut short by weather conditions. But the third time really was the charm for Bargiel, whose breathtaking accomplishment will now be chronicled in a documentary, scheduled for release in 2026.
12 records have been shattered on the third day of the 35th IDA Freediving World Championship. 52 female divers from 35 countries delivered remarkable performances, smashing multiple national and continental top scores.
Ukraine's Kateryna Sadurska emerged from the deep Mediterranean waters victorious, after diving 97 meters down, setting Kyiv's new national record. A U.S. representative set a new continental record for the Americas, reaching 96 meters down. The competition held off the coast of Cyprus proved to be the free diving event of the season, as the national records of 12 countries were smashed, highlighting just how rapidly the sport is growing. Freediving contestants dive underwater relying solely on their breath-holding skills, rather than scuba equipment.
And this concludes Midday Report. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.